Hi, welcome to Cloud Cover. My name is Ryan Dunn.
And I'm Steve Marks.
Hey, we got a great show this week. We're going to be covering a bunch of news as always, and we have a very special guest. If you're wondering who this person to my right is, Jim Nakashima. You've probably seen him at some of our major events like Tech Ed PDC, or maybe just watching America's Got Talent. So this is Jim Nakashima. He's going to walk through for us the Visual Studio tooling experience for Windows Azure, and he's got some great demos and some great things to show you all about that experience. Now first, before we do that, let's get to the news.
Cover some news.
And go ahead, Steve.
First up on the SQL Azure team blog, CTP1 of Microsoft project codenamed Houston is now available. I just call it Houston.
Yep.
And this is basically a web-based kind of visual design your SQL tables, sort of like SQL Studio Manager for the web for SQL Azure.
Right. For SQL Azure, and I think it's important for people to understand is this is no relation whatsoever to the project Dallas.
Correct.
It's not like Dallas V2. They just happen to choose a code name that happens to be relatively located in the same state and geography.
Yep.
No relation.
They're both part of Project Texas, though.
Yeah, so, we haven't talked about that yet. Steve, thanks for leaking it.
We just leaked the news about Project Texas.
Okay.
All right.
Next.
Let's move on. What do we have up next?
Stack Exchange, Data Explorer.
This is cool because this is basically Stack Exchange is you know Stack Overflow, the sort of the other sites. There's server, I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, server fault.
Server fault, right? And they're basically a family of these things. They're all powered by the same engine. All of that data is in OData format, hosted in Windows Azure in this Stack Exchange Data Explorer. So you can just go there. This is the frequently asked questions because it actually talks about the fact that it's powered by SQL Azure and Windows Azure. But this is cool. So you can write queries and wherever. They actually even have they have a page here with like top queries that actually get voted up. I don't know where that is, but something like that. Most controversial posts. I love this one. So this is the sort of query you can build with it.
Nice.
And this does basically posts that are, that's the query itself up here. That's basically the link query. You go into link pad, do this sort of thing. And if you scroll down, you see the ones that are controversial. And they're controversial because lots of upvotes and downvotes. So people are furiously debating issues. Kind of cool to see what things people are talking about. But I guess the relevant part for the cloud is that this stuff is all powered by SQL Azure and Windows Azure and OData.
Very awesome.
So, very cool.
Next. Accessing Windows Azure queues from PHP. It looks like we have a post here on msdn.com, and we have some code for PHP in this post on how to access the queue service.
And this is the last of a series of posts that Brian's been doing on using PHP with Windows Azure storage specifically. So he's actually already covered tables and blobs. This is finally the one on queues. It's got some sample code in there and basically just walks through what's the API that we ship in that the PHP storage library, which was built by a partner.
Yeah.
So that's a cool way if you're trying to get started on PHP. Check this one out, but don't forget to also just go back to Brian's blog in general, scroll down, and see some of the other things that are there.
Yep. All right, next.
This is a long post. This is actually in the vein, we just talked about the post on the storage team blog, the Windows Azure storage team blog, about
27 pages.
Oh, it was 27 pages, I think, and it was about all the ways that how costs are figured and basically what the pricing scheme is, how transactions work, what you're actually charged for, not, when bandwidth counts, and just a whole bunch of stuff. This is basically a post. This is not by the Windows Azure team. This is by somebody else who's basically put everything in there. So not just that, but he's also put in pricing, I think, for SQL Azure and for doing compute in Windows Azure. He talks about staging and production, the fact that they're both sort of the same cost model. It's another really long post because it's got a lot of detail, but this is kind of cool if you want to see some other details there. I haven't read through the whole thing because, geez, it's way too long, but but it looked cool. It looked fairly comprehensive.
I remember meeting Syntax C4 as well at Tech Ed. He said he was from Canada, Regina, I think. So
I've tweeted a lot with this guy.
Yeah, so I think this, if he did it in U.S. dollars, I'd be a little surprised. If he did it in the funny Canadian dollars, which are like what, 3 for a penny or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
We have to actually do some conversion factors in here.
Right. So you got conversion is left as an exercise to the reader.
Right. Yeah, just figure it
Canadian.
out.
Okay, Jim knows. Jim understands already.
Jim understands. Yeah.
I'll give you 3 pennies for $1. Okay, and the final thing we've got in the news is just PDC, which is not necessarily just cloud related, but the cloud and the Windows Azure platform is going to play a big part in here. We've got a really famous man keynoting, Steve Ballmer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you.
No, the other Steve.
Oh,
the lesser-known Steve at Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, is going to be getting up and talking about it. This is actually taking place in Redmond at Microsoft headquarters. Go get your tickets because there's limited seats.
Yep.
And it's really, I expect it to sell out. People should really go in and
Yeah,
sign up now, register now.
If you were holding back, I would not hold back on this.
Yeah, if you're holding back,
pull
stop
the
it.
trigger.
Just man up and register for the event. It's going to be awesome. Everybody I know is going to be there. So
yeah, everybody that works at Microsoft will be at Microsoft, surprisingly.
Yeah, we'll be there during the event.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's going to be cool. There's going to be a lot of phone stuff, I would imagine, a lot of Windows Azure stuff as well.
And it's going to be a big online
bunch of other
experience, I think, as well. So
yes. So if you can't man up and register for the thing, then watch it online because I think everything's going to be live. I read something really weird at the bottom of the page here that said, "Can't attend, watch it live," and it says there will be a live stream, live streaming of the keynotes as well as concurrent live streaming of sessions.
Yep.
Which just means live streaming of sessions as well, but multiple sessions at the same time.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay, then I understood that sentence correctly.
Concurrent. Yes.
That's what I wanted to understand. My goals for this show have been met. I parsed that sentence right. So that means you can watch everything as it's happening concurrently. You can watch like 4 sessions at the same time if you have multiple monitors.
And multiple computers.
And a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, tons of bandwidth. Okay. With that, let's turn it over to Jim and we'll find out about the Visual Studio tooling experience.
Hey,
you ready,
thanks,
Jim?
Ryan. Yeah, you bet.
All right, take it away.
Take it away, Jim.
Hey, whoa, where are you guys going? All right, so, well, actually, so Jim Nakashima, Program Manager on the Cloud Tools team. And what I want to do is actually highlight...
Oh, did you want some...
We're just messing with you.
Yeah,
I'm going to leave you all by yourself. But that was fun.
I just wanted to highlight actually what's new for the June release in the tools, because we had a lot of new features come available in June. And one of the biggest parts of that is .NET 4 and Visual Studio 2010 support. So this is kind of our Visual Studio 2010 wave of part of that Visual Studio 2010 wave, and is the Cloud Tools portion of that. We've also localized this to the Visual Studio languages. So if you're more comfortable in another language, guess what? You can now use the Windows Azure tools in that language.
So are your tools actually in Canadian then?
Yeah,
is that
actually,
what you have said?
Actually, what you didn't know is they originally were written in Canadian.
Ah.
We've now localized them to American.
Oh, I see. So that's why it says Cloud Service 1. It used to say in Canadian Cloud Service A.
Yeah, you're a clever
What
guy.
about Pig Latin? We've had that on the show earlier.
We'd used Pig Latin here earlier. I don't think that's one of the supported languages.
Oh, man.
Okay, well, one of the things that we really wanted to do, kind of moving forward, what we wanted to do is really make sure that we could help developers see into the cloud a little bit more. And one of the things that you want to do from time to time when you're developing for the cloud is really kind of get this view or windows into what's happening in the cloud. And one of the ways that we've done that is actually by providing some Server Explorer functionality here. So within the Server Explorer, you'll see 2 new nodes now. One is Windows Azure Compute and one is Windows Azure Storage. And as you might expect, they allow you to view both Azure instances as well as Windows Azure storage nodes. So by default, we had development storage, and it auto starts it and things like that. But if I wanted to add another account, I could do that. We grab some of the credentials that you've already entered in your project to make that easy integration, and you can see that I've added another storage account. Now from there, kind of our V1 feature set, we just have kind of read-only view of both blobs and tables. But one of the things that we thought was really important was to be able to handle, especially with the cloud, is to be able to handle large data sets. So if you kind of look through here, I'm going to open up this public files, and it's got a lot of data sets. And you can see that it's downloading 200 at a time. It's coming in quickly because we have a fast connection here at Microsoft. But I can click to pause, I can click to resume, and it stops at 1,000. And at any point, if I decide I want to pause and maybe filter and get a subset, I can do that. So that allows me to manage large data sets without having to get the whole container of files.
This is really great, Jim. Before we go too much further, we're gonna take a slight detour here. I think if he had been here on time, which it was a little late to the show, we were going to explain to him that as a resident Visual Studio expert and as one of our guests, what we typically do for our guests is a pop quiz. Now,
Pop quiz.
I love this idea. I don't know that it's typical. I don't think we've ever done it before.
so this is something that I wanted to do.
I was here on time. Ryan told me nothing about it, but
So what I'd like to do is actually have a pop quiz, and Steve,
great.
Steve, would you like to participate?
in a Visual Studio pop
Yeah,
quiz,
well,
or like,
it wouldn't be much of a pop quiz if it was only Jim.
well, there's going to be some Azure-related stuff, I assume.
Well, it's about Visual Studio, and since Jim was on the team that wrote the compiler, I'm sure that he probably already knows it pretty well.
Okay.
Okay,
I will do my
great.
best.
Then we will have Steve
Oh no, this is
versus
hang on.
Jim. All
I
right.
don't know what you're upset about. It's about your area. I have no idea.
Because I don't know what the questions are.
This is Jeopardy!
First question. In what year was the original Visual Studio .NET released?
Oh, 2002.
Correct. Ha! One for Jim.
That's about how I expected this to go. I'm not sure I would have gotten the decade right.
All right. What release of Visual Studio aligned with .NET 1.1?
Visual Studio 2003.
Where are you, Steve? Correct.
Yeah, I guess it has to. It's before 2005.
So far, I'm liking the pop quiz.
Okay, yeah. I'm not enjoying it.
What
quite
was
as
the
much.
code name of Visual Studio 2005?
Would be.
Would be.
No, come on, I got that. You gotta give it to me. I'm not gonna get anything else.
All right. How many SKUs of Visual Studio do we currently have?
Wow, we have VSTS. Oh no, wait, for Dev 10?
5. I think it's 5.
Correct.
It's 5. All right,
tied up.
This is good. I'm starting to feel a little more confident.
What's the keyboard shortcut for reordering parameters on methods, indexers, or delegates?
Control RR.
Correct.
Aye.
You should know that one. I do that all the time.
I actually
right.
use really old key bindings, believe it or not, so I always
What
get
do you
those on the
use?
wrong.
You use like
By-
a
I usually
VI?
use the 2003 bindings.
Oh, I see. So now his history with Visual Studio is hurting him. I like this.
Well, I'd used it for such a long time that it was hard for me to move when they changed some of them.
All right.
right.
By default, how often does auto recover save?
Probably every minute.
5 minutes?
Correct.
I think it's 5 minutes. Jim.
Jimmy,
Hang on, what's going on here?
4-2.
4-2 is the score.
Right.
By default,
I
what
like
is
this all the time.
what is the RGB value of the XML name in the text editor? That is the color automatic coloring. What is the RGB value for that?
Hexadecimal or decimal?
Decimal.
I know it in hex. It's like A31515. So that's
Jeez, I have no idea.
1632121.
Correct.
I use that on my blog. That's one of the
Wow,
colors.
that was amazing.
That was a lucky one. I just happen I actually know that one.
Because I don't really like the direction.
We'll just do it again. I'll let you get all the right answers.
How many pixels wide is the standard OK button in all dialogues of Visual Studio?
Oh, I should know that.
Should be 85 because that's in the
Correct.
guidelines for. Yep.
How do you remember stuff like this?
85 because I have
work
to
on
design UI
stuff.
and
I
whatever.
design UI all the time. I remember that. I just say use the standard, default.
Oh, Jim.
I pay attention to these details.
How many toolbars are available in
think
the
there's a
default
fix. This is
installation of
This is
Ultimate?
fixed.
How many toolbars? What's a toolbar?
You know, when
Like
you
the
go up
things you
view,
can-
view toolbars.
This
Yeah.
is fixed.
How many?
I don't know, 20?
It's more than that.
15?
Like 30, 38.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I see where this is going.
And last question. What is the first 4 digits of the serial number of the certificate that is signed the Visual Studio main XE?
Oh, 6101.
Correct.
That's easy. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm afraid.
Wow, I can't believe what an upset.
What an upset. Steve slaughtered Jim.
I can't believe.
Folks,
Yeah.
sometimes when you work on the product for so long, you just get disconnected from the things.
From the real- the user
really
experience.
Certificate value.
Right.
Yeah, everybody should know that certain values.
Well, Jim's got people who do the certificate signing. The rest of us have to go look at the binary to determine these
I
things.
don't even
So,
think you have rights to use the certificate.
All right.
all right. So now that we've discredited Jim as an expert,
As an expert in Visual Studio,
go ahead and tell
let's
us some more.
continue.
I do say that all seemed rather rehearsed.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right. Right. So, like I was saying, we want to. You can view blobs, things like that, and actually, we allow you to open up blobs right inside of Visual Studio as well. So, let me bring something up here, and oops, I'm out of screen space. All right, I'm going to randomly choose one. And that's going to bring it up, open it up right inside Visual Studio so you can actually view those blobs. And you can actually see down here that we have some status and activity that you can actually watch as well. So everything happens asynchronously, so you don't actually have to wait for it and have it in your face.
So even the download shows up here as a...
Yeah, and I'll show you.
So if it was a big blob, we would actually seen some progress.
It would have taken a while.
Does this work with queues?
No, it doesn't work with queues. Like I said before,
Just
blobs
tables.
and tables today.
Okay.
But I'll also show you the table support because it's very similar to the blob support as well. Again, handling large data sets, in this case entities, download 2 at a time. You can click the pause at any time. And you can write an Astoria or WCF data services query in here. So I could say something like address equals, and I can maybe copy and paste one in here, and it'll give me that subset. Or if I wanted kind of a set of results, I could say greater than, for example. And so you can do those queries right in there and just get a subset of data. Again, that's a server-side call, so you don't have to worry about downloading all your data, especially when you're dealing with large data sets, as you will typically in the cloud.
And this is also read-only, right? So both of these are read-only for now.
For now.
I assume that's changing.
Yeah, we have a plan to enable more support for this as we move down.
Editing and uploading blobs, et cetera.
Yep. So then you can see here as well, we have the Azure Compute, and you can see various, I have a couple of different hosted services here. One's empty. One has a Nerd Dinner application that's kind of unresponsive, and we'll talk about how I can get a view into what's going on there, because quite often people run into problems with their service running in the cloud and want to get some help solving that. But before I get to that, I actually want to talk just briefly about publishing from Visual Studio. And if you've been familiar with previous versions of the Windows Azure tools, you'll know that when we go to publish, we create the package for you, but then you kind of have to manually go to the portal and upload. And you know what? We can do better than that. And in fact, for the June release, we did better. We have an integrated deploy right from Visual Studio. If you still want to create that service package, you can create service package only. But for those of you that are just looking to get that service up to the cloud easily and quickly, right from Visual Studio, you can do that. You can see here that you can choose credentials and which hosted service and slot and things like that.
This is incredibly handy as a developer, and I found the process actually for creating the certificate as well, which you have to use to manage your service, is very seamless, very smooth. It gives you the right URL, tells you where to paste in things, tells you how to do it.
It copies it to the clipboard for you.
Yeah,
like,
so
it's really nice.
When people ask like, how do I get my services managed and how do I do that programmatically, I always say, use Visual Studio
do that once
2010,
first,
use it once, get it to set up your credentials, and then you can, if you don't want to do it through Visual Studio, you want to do it in your own scripts or something like that, you at least have all the foundation set up. It's a great tool.
Great. And one of the things I'll highlight here as well is that you can enable IntelliTrace, and we'll talk a little bit about that, because you can see I have a service that's not working.
What is IntelliTrace, Jim?
That's a good question, Ryan. So IntelliTrace, also known as kind of historical debugging, is a kind of flight recorder of sorts. It gathers a bunch of data when your service is running, and then lets you open that data and view it and kind of historically debug what happened previously in a different environment. In this case, my application is actually running in the cloud on Windows Azure, so it's a very different environment from my dev environment. But what you'll actually see is I'll be able to debug it kind of historically, as if I had run it right here on my own desktop. So,
wow, cool.
And then you can set some of the settings, like how much data you want to collect. Like in here, I have it set to the high value, which collects data from every method entry and exit, and so that gives me a lot of capability.
Can you ignore some errors and certain things like that?
Yeah, so there's some filters and things here that, like in terms of modules, if you don't want to collect data from all the modules or all the processes even, or some events, you can kind of turn these things on and off.
And the reason to filter that stuff out is size of the traces, right?
Yeah.
For both storing them and retrieving them.
Yep, size and noise.
Well, when you're in the cloud, a lot of times you're using the storage client library, and that if you're intentionally doing a lookup into storage and you're getting a 404 or something like that, and you're expecting that as a normal course of operations, sometimes you just want to filter those out and say, look, just ignore storage client. I know I'm going to be throwing a lot of errors from there.
Yep.
So.
So anyway, I can hit deploy, but I've actually got one going. And so I'm going to bring up, again, this Windows Azure activity log, which I can expand, and you can see that there was a bunch of information that's going on. And actually, had this succeeded, you would have seen, preparing, connecting, uploading, and then actually I had a service already running in this hosted service slot. But Visual Studio just asked me, hey, you already have one running here. Do you want to just delete and redeploy? I said, yep. So it just took care of that for me. And I can actually get rid of that prompt if I want to as well. Then it would create and deploy that application and wait until the actual all the different instances are running.
This is pretty useful as compared to the portal as well, where there's kind of there's a manual step in there, which is
Yeah.
you
Right.
got to deploy, then you got to hit run.
And if you're deleting something,
gotta
there's sort of
stop.
a stop, delete,
Yeah.
deploy, run, and you have to sort of wait for each of those to
and this just
babysit them. This does
chunks
all
through
of
it.
it automatically, which is
Yep.
very nice.
pretty awesome. Yeah, I use this all the time when I deploy. It doesn't do upgrade, so I don't do
Yeah.
like my upgrade. You can do a VIPs, you can deploy to staging and then swap or something.
Yeah.
But if you're doing an in-place upgrade, then I go create the package and go. So I tend to like do this to start with, like when I'm still when it's not live yet, just go we'll delete and redeploy a new one.
Yep.
And then once it's live, I go do an in-place upgrade or something with the portal. But
Exactly.
it's way faster than than sitting there on the portal by hand, because you're not just going to wait there and press the buttons. And so so
unless
this gets
you-
the job done a lot faster.
Yeah, so in this case, the roll didn't start, and there's a problem. So I want to actually debug
Way
that.
to go, Jim.
Well,
You can't even write working code for the show.
Can't always get
If
it
you'd have
right.
been here on
Jeez.
time,
Then you could have
tested
debugged it already and fixed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to use this.
Well,
I'm going to turn lemons into lemonade.
Oh,
right,
wow.
so-
All right.
so I'm
We've
gonna
already
go here.
established he's a Visual Studio noob. by
Right,
his thrashing
exactly.
on the quiz.
20 toolbars. 20. Everybody knows it's 38.
Maybe that was the goal. So anyway, view IntelliTrace logs. What I can do is get information back about that instance. Again, we're going to populate this activity log, in this case with a new one, and we're going to get kind of messages to kind of guide you along. But it's totally asynchronous, so I can go ahead, if I want to write some code or blog and things like that, I can go ahead and do that without tying up Visual Studio. Sure.
And how does this actually work? How do the IntelliTrace logs get from? Are they on the VM right now?
They are. So actually, as part of deploying with IntelliTrace, we actually enable the instrumenter, and it actually runs as part of your application running in the cloud. And then the log actually gets periodically created. When I say, hey, give me the IntelliTrace logs, we have an agent there that's running that says, okay, we're going to get you IntelliTrace logs. It snaps the logs or creates the actual logs and moves them over to cloud storage where they're accessible from Visual Studio, because it's a public URL. Then we download it from there and bring them up here right inside Visual Studio. So you can see that IntelliTrace log popped up.
Right. So I think it's important to point out that as cool as IntelliTrace is, this is a debugging step. You're going to do it in development. You're not going to put this on in production.
Correct. It's not intended for production. In fact, our licensing
Because of a
actually
performance overhead, or geez,
well, our
lawyers will
license-
sue you if you turn it on in production.
It has more to, we want to make sure
Jim will
the
actually
service
find
is
you.
fully hardened and things like that, and make sure that it's appropriate for production before we go ahead and allow people to,
Oh, I see.
to
I
do
see,
something
right.
as.
But there's a performance implication, right? I
There
think
is.
that people won't want to do this in
Exactly.
production, at least not logging all that much data.
That's correct. So, and I could click into these different threads, and actually in this case, my service really just didn't start, but I could also, would actually tie into source code, and I could actually, debug historically and step forward and step back and see some information about what's going on. In this case, I chose a really common error that people run into, especially in these situations where they're migrating existing ASP.NET MVC app is in particular to run on the cloud, which is they forgot to include the system.web.mvc DLL.
Yep.
If only they had read your blog
yeah.
where you tell people that they should do this.
That's right, but not everybody has read that blog, unlike your blog. But so
I should just post it. Then problem solved. No one will ever get this error again. Everyone will read it.
well, as long as you cross-post to my blog.
Oh, I see.
And then so you can see here, system.web.mvc, it says, hey, that file's missing. And I can actually go ahead and fix that problem pretty simply just by going over here to Nerd Dinner, looking at references, system.web.mvc, and saying, in this case, copy local from false to true, redeploy using Visual Studio, and everything will work fine.
So just out of, for historical purposes, why is it that IntelliTrace is catching this and like our diagnostics currently are not catching this?
Right, so our diagnostics, actually I can kind of show you, I don't have that right here right now, but our diagnostics actually starts up as part of your application. And in this case, when you have a file or assembly load failure, your application actually doesn't start, so your entry points don't even get called, so diagnostics doesn't even start. We're going to change that, we're going to improve that, and make it an agent similar to how IntelliTrace is an agent, but at least for the time being, the diagnostic system lacks that.
It's simply a case where we're not getting to start the diagnostic monitor before the failure. And IntelliTrace is one of these things that it's in the system right at startup time. It's already monitoring.
Yep.
This is fantastic.
Yeah. And there's more, right? Because even if you could see this exception in diagnostics, you can't do what you can with IntelliTrace, which is actually see where the error is, find out what happened, what the it's that historical debugging thing.
Historical debugging.
Right. So you could get a message, but you'd have to sort of guess it.
Right.
How you got there or whatever. Well, IntelliTrace has a bunch of that data about how you led up to the error that you got to.
Yeah.
Perhaps not in this case. There's probably not a lot of interesting stuff, but in a lot of errors, that's a good place to kind of go back.
You can see the control flow through your code, step through it.
Yeah, and go, oh, look, this if returned false when I thought it would be true. That's why this ended up happening.
Yep.
And that's just, I mean, a lot of times that'll just save you.
Yeah. Well, this is really great, Jim. So what is your blog again for our watchers and listeners?
Yeah, so it's blogs.msdn.com//jnak, JNAK.
Okay, and it's Cloudy in
Janak.
Seattle,
Cloudy in
if
Seattle.
you want to do a search.
We'll put a link.
This is the infamous Cloudy in Seattle. So not only is he a...
We've unmasked the
and not
Cloudy
only
in
is he on
Seattle.
America's Got Talent, didn't he write the compiler for the CLR team, but he's also Cloudy in Seattle. So this is a very famous guy. We're pleased to have him on the show, even if he is 35 minutes late. Okay, so with that, we need to move to our tip of the week.
It's that time. It's everybody's favorite time in the show,
Yep.
where we have a tip of the week, and that means we have to have some intro to the tip of the week.
Correct.
That we have our fabulous editor Bob edit in. Do you have any ideas, Ryan, for what the?
Well, I think since Jim is Cloudy in Seattle, I think we should probably have some theme of Jim being cloudy in Seattle, perhaps seeing Jim on a cloud, lounging
In Seattle?
in Seattle.
That sounds good.
Yep.
All right. So with that, here is your tip of the week.
The bluest skies you've ever seen in Seattle.
And the tip of the week this week is use the SQL Azure Migration Wizard version 3.3.3 or later.
That sounds fake. 3.3.3.
Yeah.
What are the odds it just happens to be that?
I don't know. But I think the important thing here is to point out is that there are some differences between your on-premises SQL scripts and what works in SQL Azure. There's certain functionality I know Steve and I have talked about in the past that is not enabled currently today in SQL Azure. So when you want to take your existing SQL Server database that you're running on premises and you want to move that up to the cloud, we have this great tool for you, and it's the SQL Azure Migration Wizard. It'll run through and at least mark the stuff that needs some work, if not fix it for you. And this is just a fantastic tool. A guy named George Huey, I think, actually produced this tool. He's out in the field in Microsoft. Fantastic job, highly recommended to anybody who's doing this migration step themselves, and there are a lot of folks that are. So that's it. That's really the tip of the week. And again, we want to thank Jim Nakashima for being on the show.
Ryan.
And for being a good sport.
And being a good sport, even though he lost
Even though he was
dramatically.
really late also.
Yeah, and he lost dramatically in the pop
He
quiz.
really did, yeah.
With that, see you next week.
Well,
Thanks.
hey, wait.
Whoa, what?
We got to talk about next week because, well, first of all, everyone should be sure to send us a message on Twitter at CloudCoverShow. We're supposed to say that at the end of the show. Even
Oh, yeah, you're
it
right.
makes no measurable impact on how many people tweet us. But we should also talk about next week because next week we may or may not have a show.
We're not having a show.
We're not having a show next week.
So we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yet again, this show is just a way for me to learn things. So we will be back here 2 weeks from now. And so you can still tweet us at CloudCoverShow. We'll still answer you. If you miss us in our week off, you could just send us a message and we'll reply.
Yeah, or send Jim a message and he'll forward it to us if he can find the time.
That's
Nakashima.
true. Jay Nakashima.
All right.
Okay. Until
Now see
2
you-
weeks from now.
2 weeks, right. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.